I mean, how else are we going to use this money if it's so constrained, but it's really not? If the clean energy community people say, yes, use the money for this, I mean, I don't know what else we can do.
I don't know if this would unnecessarily complicate things or if it's possible if this is town money, but could you
just go
have?
to the podium and introduce yourself?
Oh,
No, you're on YouTube, Christine,
okay.
or you will be.
okay. So I'm Christina Herman, live on the island. And I just, as I said, I don't know if this would complicate things unnecessarily, but would it be possible for the town to take, you know, if you give them out, to take donations from people who wish to replenish the fund? Would that be too complicating a factor?
Idea. And I will say, Meg, to your point about purchasing the buckets, you know, some people say people will take anything if it's free, and they might just take a bucket, and who knows what they would use it for. So perhaps if they were charged for the bucket and were sort of signing up in a more formal way, and that would be something that the town could take, you know, an active role in. I mean, I think part of this proposal was to try to limit the requirements for the town to manage or, you know, have people show up and run this thing, because Sylvester Manor and Lynn Colligan at the farmers market are willing to do all of that for the distribution. But there could be some process added or a protocol that would, you know, that would provide comfort to the town and potentially replenish the fund. That would be great. Maybe it's a sliding scale so that you're not requiring that people,
Exactly.
you know, that they pay for the bucket in order to participate, but certainly not averse to putting some kind of, I mean, obviously we would track who's taking the buckets. Lynn, I think, was very, very keen to do that. That part of it, the distribution at the farmer's market, came up as just a serendipitous inquiry from Lynn Colligan that people were asking, is there some way we can do something with food scraps? Mm-hmm. The program that I referenced in East Hampton that I shared with you guys was actual, like at the farmers markets, you can actually bring your waste, your food waste. The biggest challenge over at the collection site at Sylvester Manor is that, especially in weather like this, it gets really ripe really fast. Which is why the bid, that price list included some storage bins. So instead of having it sit out all day in the tractor bucket that then walks its way across to the compost piles, it's going to be put into, you know, contained bins, and that just eliminates odor and insects and crows and everybody else who wants to make a mess of it. I think that the idea of having people drop off scraps at the farmer's market is not a good idea, not something that Havens House would be interested in. And it just has an additional layer and time frame for the odor, the downside impact. That's why it was proposed that that'll be the distribution site for getting new participants, but that the drop-off, it will be somewhat they'll have to come at the same time that the other drop-offs are happening. That's the only way that Sylvester Manor can provide the staffing.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, I've said, and if I at some point need to recuse myself so that you guys can vote, because I work at Sylvester Manor, you let me know.
Anyway, I think, you know, in view of the fact that the recycling center is not equipped right now to do this, and Sylvester Manor is sort of the place where we can do this, and, you know, it's also going to save residents money, because when you fill your bag up with wet garbage, so I just think it has many, many pluses, and just, I personally think, and the clean energy community supports it, is this is a good use of the money. And I would really hate to see this not work out.
I'll ask Stephen to look at the grant again and just see what he thinks.
And we'll, Sarah was discussing, she and I discussed this too, about, adding a price of the buckets or, what do you call, not a down payment, but a deposit. We talked about a deposit system. Come up with anything that people suggest, but within reason. But anyway, we rest our case.
You got Stephen, circle back.
Yeah, I was gonna just echo what Tim just said, that, another way to do it, if it doesn't add too much complication, is simply to, when you're giving somebody a bucket, just take the $10, and the first time that they bring the bucket back full with scraps, you give them the $10 back.
That does further complicate things.
Just a
I think
suggestion.
yeah.
Okay. When is Stephen back, by the way?
Will be here today? No, Monday?
Oh, no, he should be available, unless he's taking a vacation day, he should be available remotely.
Okay. I'll reach out to him today.
I'd be happy to meet with him with you.
Mhm.
Because he and I did talk about this a year ago. And the scholarship, and all about the scholarship to the school, which was sort of wasn't supportive of that, even though Clean Energy Community was okay with it. But, I think it'd be easier if instead of, I'd like to be in the room with him.
Okay. Yeah. Today's what, Thursday? So he won't be physically back in the building until Monday.
He can,
Okay.
But he
There you
can Zoom or we can call him.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you could inform the manor for me, because if it's not gonna happen this way, we'll try to find another way, because we're gonna lose our window with the farmer's market.
No, I know.
Yeah, go.
The timing is the other thing. We don't want to lose the rest of the summer, and then all the people are here now.
And certainly the distribution of the green buckets, which, is this concept of keeping them distinct from the CSA program, could happen at the Green Expo as well, if they're.
Yep, exactly.
in time.
Exactly. And what if the town absorbed the money? Would that make any difference?
Absorb what money?
If the town essentially absorbed the grant money to its own budget?
No, it was more he was thinking it's more like an unconstitutional gift, like we're giving a gift to Sylvester Manor to support their program.
So it doesn't matter,
What- yeah.
doesn't matter if it's the Green Committee or the town or,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
okay.
So we'll go back and talk to him.
And what if,
I just want to speak to the verbiage of that it's their program, but it's really meant to, the reason to expand the program is to benefit the town as a whole. It's not just to have more, so it's a little bit, that's a little bit concerning, the way that's expressed.
yeah, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, Christina Herman, again, thinking that this is actually a service that Sylvester Manor would be providing to the town. So the town would be getting services for free. Sylvester Manor, it's not like they're getting benefit by getting people's food waste. They're actually, it's, flowing in the other direction.
Well, there is an associated benefit, which is that it enables farm to produce more on-site.
Because you would be
compost.
using compost.
Would you? Right, but then the compost is being used to produce food, much of which,
Right.
a significant percentage of which is being distributed for free to residents of the town through CAST and the food pantry. So there's, again, this is the whole question of circularity and keeping the nutrients on the island in a way that benefits the community. So it's just, it seems like a little mental disconnect about partnership. And
Could I ask a question? Would you ever produce so much compost that you'd have more than you could use? And
well,
people-
the goal first is to produce all the compost needed on site for the food production.
Uh-huh.
But of course, in our dreams, there would be, there's some programs where when you bring your food scraps, you get to take a nice bucket of compost home to your garden. That would be great. There is a prohibition, at least in the PDR in the preserved farmland, against commercial production of compost. It's considered industrial because there have been problems with compost production on these sites. Yeah, there's definitely the possibility that surplus compost would become something that could be made available to the community. It's just, that's a little longer term. And that's why it's so crucial to take these incremental step ups in sourcing materials. This is also a service that's being provided to local businesses, the landscapers, and Mashamik is contributing their leaves. It's had, a significant impact for local businesses as well. And the more leaves that are taken in, the more you want to balance those with the greens from the food waste. I hope that there's an openness to policies and decisions that really promote these partnerships such as this one, so.
What if, this probably doesn't really change it, but what if the Green Committee purchased all the materials? And I guess we're still donating.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We'll talk to Stephen about it, I'll let you know.
Okay. But while we're on the subject, John and Steve, do you view this in a positive, just something that you would support as use of the money?
Absolutely, yes, of course, yes.
I think we're all in agreement about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether, you talked about talking to Stephen, just wondering whether he should be part of one of our meetings too.
Also, I would urge him to check in with the town attorneys in East Hampton who have found a way to partner with a nonprofit for their food waste diversion program. The town, I sent an article to Christina and to you, I think, that was it was featured in the East Hampton Star last week. The town is partnering with this entity called Rewild Long Island, which is an island-wide nonprofit. And maybe that would be helpful in addressing this concern about unconstitutional gift, which I'm going to research also because I want a better understanding of that for, present and future.
Yeah, no, because I think, particularly because I think Riverhead and other communities which are setting up these food collection bins in towns, and farms are the recipients of this material. So this is going to be a collaboration that we really need to make this work on the East End. Or it's one of the ways. So I think we really need to find a solution to this. Otherwise, we're just going to keep moving forward on this problem. And also, again, I think Brian's concerned about the reason that he wanted to buy all of his composters and distribute or sell them to people at cost was to reduce the wet waste coming to the recycling center, which were then shipping off or carting off the island. So again, it also benefits us, the town, because it reduces that material.
Right.
So.
Tim, what was the source of funding for the composters that were raffled off?
That was a DEC grant.
So that's another example of public funds being gifted with compost buckets to the community. So there is precedent.
Yeah, I feel like some of
That
the
is true.
issue is, like, if it's to an individual organization, but if it's open to the entire public, that might be part of the differentiation.
It is open to the entire public.
So the green buckets would be anyone in the community.
Absolutely
The
anyone.
white buckets, you have to be a CSA member to get. So that might be a little bit of a glitch. And also the Camp Quinnipiac bins, that's an individual organization. So if you could get funding for the truly public piece of this, and not the individual CSA and Camp Quinnipiac, would you still be able to go forward? program, if it was like 2,400 that you got instead of 39.
Sure, I mean, anything would be helpful. The only sort of potential rebuttal to that is the other end of what's happening, even if it's Quinnipiac's waste or CSA members' waste, it's taking it out of the town's waste stream. So it's a little bit more deferred, but it is a public benefit.
But we do get revenues from their delivery. They have to pay to deliver it to the dump. So we have revenues and we have expenses.
Yeah, although I think the reasons.
Wasting is different.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's too soon, but there will be these, harsher mandates on food waste diversion and so maybe it's a little ahead of the curve, but absolutely, Amber,
I'm trying to figure a workaround on.
if there were, absolutely, if there were a partial grant, that would certainly be better than no grant. So, thank you.
But I mean, every time I talk to Brian about this is always on the top of his mind, that we need to reduce, the distributing of the compost, which didn't work out. And not because it didn't work, it was the money was deferred, went towards something else. But again, it's all that waste. It is reducing maybe fees that they collect for the bags and all that stuff. But at the same time, all that stuff then has to be carted off, and the landfills, we're going to lose landfills, and it's going to have to go further. So Brian has been concerned about this for 2 years. So.
And then there's the methane, the climate change impact.
All of this. So it's all, I mean, this really, really, really benefits the island.
Associated with trucking.
It benefits everybody. And my understanding, Sarah, is that, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is if you expand the program, it goes beyond just the CSA people, right?
Oh, yes, that's the whole
Yeah.
point.
So it's not just the CSA and Quinnipiac, but it's actually the general public can now do this.
Yes, no, that's
Right, and Amber's making the distinction that general public buckets, maybe that's an easier
Oh, I'm sorry.
resolution.
It's yourself, then.
Yeah, like I came up with a number for 2,400, and that's the green buckets and lids. It's the labels for those buckets, the scale.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what I was playing with.
Okay,
That would be delightful solution.
So we can talk to Stephen about that. That may be more viable than a few of the other asks that were in the request. That I think kind of made him think it was
okay,
more a gift.
all right. Whatever we can,
Work it out.
whatever we can do to make this work would be great. Okay, moving from food waste to biogas. Again, Meg, I mentioned this to the rest of the committee before you came in, but I had not read the information that you received and that Kathy Gooding had forwarded to me about the biogas, which had I read it, I would have understood better that it was a very specific proposal that he wanted the town to be partnership, I think, with an application that was due July 13th, and it was very specific to this person's goals and company, et cetera.
Right.
But Steve read it and sort of thought there could be applications for Sylvester Manor. And Christina has thoughts also about biogas, so we can maybe just have a little discussion about biogas. Steve, did you want to just mention any applications that you thought would be pertinent to?
Well, it depends on the scale. And at the scale I think we're talking about on the island here, it's, clearly at the Sylvester Manor scale. Looking over the technology that was in the attachments, I'm not sure how many individuals on the island would want to get involved in, biogas generation at their own homes or businesses otherwise.
Is this electricity from biogas?
Well, exactly, it's producing the biogas. What you do then with the biogas, whether you're generating electricity or generating heat, that is a downstream decision.
I see.
This is just creating the biogas itself. And so, it's not, from my perspective, a complete plan. It's just selling a technology.
I mean, they're essentially capturing methane and these biogas facilities are typically used on CAFOs, combined agricultural food operations. So very large, mostly animal agriculture. One of the investors in our network invests in these things, but they're at big farms. And I don't even know that Sylvester Manor would generate enough waste. And you compost and you use your animal leavings on, manure on the farm, I would imagine. So I don't know, but I did want to ask if it would be applicable to the landfill, because landfill methane production is about a third agricultural, about a third oil and gas, and about a third from landfills. So it's a really important source of methane. And methane, of course, is a potent greenhouse gas. So capturing it is very valuable. But I have no idea. I don't know anything about the landfill here, but I think that would be the place to look if we were going to, ask any questions about this technology.
And then, of course, that's only part of the answer. That's really the front end.
That's right. And then what do you do with it?
What do you do with it? You're talking about even at the landfill level, an investment, a design and investment in infrastructure that has to be constructed, operated, and maintained. Okay, it's an industrial process.
Exactly.
Even at that relatively small level. And so, we're now getting involved in a new kind of industrial process on this island. And obviously, that would have to be part of the evaluation process at the front end. Separate and apart from that, obviously, we're behind the timeline for any application, at least this year. I don't know if it's an annual grant, as it was with ETIP, but we're clearly behind the timeframe here, since even if we decided enthusiastically to go forward with this application, probably take us a week to 2 weeks, and we're already a week past the deadline for the preliminary. So
One of the things that we could put on the list, should we become an ETIP cohort member, they could include, a look at this.
Could I just say one more thing about it, though, that the composting discussion earlier was really important. That's the cheapest way to reduce your methane emissions from food waste. So I would just go with that. And you've got a very simple, inexpensive way of addressing the problem. I mean, to put in a pipeline to pipe the gas to anywhere where it could be used is $1 million a mile. So it's like, I don't know.
What are we talking about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our landfill is capped and there's no methane production out of the landfill, is there?
I wouldn't think so.
Pittsburgh.
no, and but even if you were producing, a minimum amount to make the infrastructure investment worthwhile at the landfill, at the town landfill, you've got to use it or store it.
Right.
And, that's a whole different
Sounds like we've ruled it out.
project. Okay, you're in you have to build the whole, design and build the whole system. And, as was mentioned, there are alternatives that are probably simpler and more cost-effective at this point.
Okay, everybody, Don, you,
It's dead.
biogas, you're dead to
Thing we
us.
don't have.
Well, certainly right now.
Yes, right now, okay.
Cost prohibitive.
Anyway, I just wanted to satisfy the question. Okay.
I have a couple of old business reports. Last month, I offered to look into demo circularity for construction and demolition.
Yes,
The two organizations that I found that had the most useful information were, one was a national nonprofit called the Institute for Local Self-Reliance.
I know them.
And they have 1 million tabs that you can click on to look at things along those lines. And that eventually led me to, or it may have been a separate search, the one that seemed the most promising for who's actually doing this in a, in a community is called Finger Lakes Reuse. It sounds to me, I wasn't able to get too far with the research, that they have a warehouse where people can, that becomes a sort of clearinghouse for materials. And various ways of incentivizing contractors to bring stuff there when they're taking down a house rather than just pay a disposal fee or whatever. And then, again, it would take a lot more looking at, but it made me wonder whether there might be somebody in, in the trades, in the building trades, on the island who might have like a corner of a yard or, of a spot where there might be an opportunity to partner, because obviously a facility like this could take up, precious space. So you would want to find some place where it could happen.
Don't you do that at the landfill now?
Well, they're pretty maxed out with, I don't know how much room they have. The C&D, is very, you can find treasures there. We have many things incorporated into my home that have been picked up at the Metal and Wood Depot. But it's definitely happening. There are models. We could investigate it further. That would be my bottom line on that.
it's an interesting idea, having
Well,
A place.
a place.
That's one way to do it.
Shelter Island may be a bit small
Yeah.
for this sort of operation, but if we combine with adjacent towns, it might be worthwhile.
Yeah, although I think, again, one of the goals is to, avoid having to haul the stuff on and off the island. And it came up really because we know that there have been some major demolitions where a lot of good material was, so maybe it's because it's small, you start small, and maybe you just find, let the builders know or somehow communicate that there's interest in capturing these materials. And if an opportunity comes up, then you figure out what to do with it. I don't know. It might just be an education. I don't know. And that I didn't do was reach out to anybody at Finger Lakes to ask them, like, how'd you get started? Or, what's your scope and where does the money come from and all of that. But-
The name just suggests it's only there.
Yeah, but Finger
that's a
Lakes
large
is a pretty big region, yeah.
I understand the concern about, having to haul the materials off the island, but truth be told, they were hauled onto the island to begin with and are being hauled onto the island. We don't produce our own construction materials on this island.
Right.
So, when you talk about circularity, that's really where how the circle is closed. I'm not saying I have the answer to that. I'm simply saying that, as Dawn suggested, looking at it from a little broader perspective, does have some merit to it. From my perspective, the folks who are selling them those materials, whether it's Home Depot or, who's the other?
Riverhead Building.
Riverhead Building or whatever, I think they might have some role to play, if not even some responsibility
Yeah.
at some point down the road. That's not my area of expertise. I'm just,
Well, maybe-
commenting.
Maybe this is more a, practice of philosophy education thing that we could focus on, is just encouraging people, again, through the repair cafe and the clothing swap, and just branching out with that idea of reduce, reuse, recycle, to say, if you're gonna, do a renovation, think about whether somebody can use, I mean, we have a taker for the cabinets in the Sylvester Manor kitchen that are gonna go. So, it's just maybe we could just promote the mindset of reuse.
In North Carolina, we deal with the Restore, the Habitat for Humanity Restore. I don't know if there are any restores around here. Do you know what they are?
I've heard of it, but I don't know if there are any, no.
It's, you drop off your materials.
Yeah.
It can be used windows, it can be other parts of the house, as long as they are in the, serviceable condition. Usually it's appliances. So they accept a lot and they resell it, and it benefits Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, cool. Well, I know that the school has a relationship with Habitat. Maybe we can find out more about that.
The school does?
Yeah, there's one on Long Island.
Is there?
Yeah, there's.
Where is it?
Ronkonkoma.
Mhm.
That's not too
Yeah, they
far.
call it the Restore Store.
Yeah, yep. Yeah.
The other thing I followed up on is I spoke with the owner of the IGA, and she was working, so I didn't, I didn't get very far. But she alluded to some regulations that make it not so easy for them to donate their food scraps. And she also, I started to raise the question of, what is your approach to reducing packaging materials and so on? And she said, well, we don't use styrofoam, or we won't use styrofoam as soon as the manufacturers have sold out all their styrofoam, or something along those lines. Like, there's a supply chain thing that's a factor. But the main thing was that she was very open to the topic, and she invited us to email her at shelterislandiga@gmail.com. And she pointed to some recycled material coolers that she's been sourcing. So she's doing some purchasing with this kind of in mind. And it sounded to me like what we could do for her is promote awareness of the things that she's already doing. Because I had the sense that she doesn't feel that people are aware that she's trying, and that she's really making an effort, and that this matters to her, to the store. So I thought that we could follow up with her and say, let's publicize the things that you're doing and see what else we can do together, or something like that. So I don't know if you'd like to follow up with her as chair, or if you want me to just keep working on
If
it.
you don't mind, just since you already have a
So you
connection.
know what I'll do is I'll draft a set of queries to her and circulate them to the committee. And you guys can weigh in, see if there's anything else you want to ask about. But it was interesting, right off the bat, there was like Health Department or Ag and Markets, or whoever it is, the agency that regulates their food safety practices. That was her immediate constraint. So it'd be good to find out more about that from her. And yeah, so that was my homework.
Which brings me to, Coco gave me this, which was sort of updating our Green Committee page. And again, Meg had cards for this last year, and we've had no comments on the comments page. But I'm just wondering, when you talk about communicating what the IGA is doing and stuff, if there's some way we can sort of improve our communication of all the things that we do, that we're trying to do, and get this out to the public more.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to come up with Facebook posts, we can put it on the social media, we can put it on the town website, we can do little links to it. We are working on updating and revamping our entire town website, which will have a notification aspect to it, so we'll be able to do like notify me kind of concept.
Right,
But that's gonna take about 6 months to get that fully up and running because we're building a new platform, new website, everything. So there's gonna be some time before that's ready. Hopefully by January 1st, it'll be ready to go. So in the meantime, if you wanna come up with Facebook posts, even if they're just informational, you know, tips to composting, or this is a program that we're starting up, or Green Expo's coming, you know, absolutely just give us the information and we'll post it on the website and the Facebook page and Instagram. I think that's a pretty effective way to get information out. I think a lot of people end up seeing that. I get feedback from it, so.
right. I mean, I do send in stuff like the Green Expo. I do that so it goes up on Instagram, et cetera. Speaking of Green Expo and committees again, I'd emailed Jerry a couple, I don't know, maybe a month ago. We haven't had a meeting with the committees heads for quite a while, and it's really overdue. And I was hoping we could do something before the expo so that we could, because you weren't here, Amber, when I brought this up, but I'd emailed all the committee heads for the committees that have come to the expo, just saying that we are having the expo, not sure where it is, but we'll figure that out. But, although we seem to know better now, but I was asking for ideas and input of things we could do, and really only heard back from one person. So I think it'd be great if we could have getting together again. It's just very helpful. For instance, recently Jim Bevilacqua has brought the CPF committee and the Green Committee into, and I suggested also including Howard Johansson, CAC
Yeah.
committee, addressing invasive plants that actually make it, that are more, for instance, Japanese barberry. Studies have shown that Japanese barberry harbor more ticks than other plants do. They provide the perfect environment for ticks. So it's the idea of really addressing this to the public and somehow taking on some of the invasive plants in the island to help reduce the tick population. So, but again, this is something that, you know, we should all be sharing this information with each other and coming up with ideas that,
The CAC is currently working on their invasive plant list.
yes,
And they're putting out a whole pamphlet with pictures and explanations and.
yes.
So, yeah, it would be a good thing to coordinate.
And I've been talking to Howard about this, but, you know, again, it's just, you know, there are other things that are going on that it's just very helpful for all to be in touch with each other.
I have some under old business, actually, the E-tip that I'd like to add.
Yeah,
Okay. Probably should have mentioned this on the E-tip update, but we, in our discussions with the E-tip, and now that the decision is, dare I say, looming shortly, we do need to be prepared, or at least thinking in that direction. Because they may require us to literally hit the ground running. And if so, one of the things that we had discussed was forming a committee that would be working directly with E-tip to fulfill their requirements over the next, what was it, 2 years? Meetings and.
it's like 18 months or something. Almost 2 years.
And research and contacts and so forth and so on. And I'm just saying, you know, we need to be at least somewhat, you know, proactive, or at least thinking about how, if in fact we're selected, how we're going to be able to set up to respond. That's my concern at this point. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's a concern that you and Sarah had before we.
Well, let's, I thought when we did the application, we kind of articulated, because they asked us, like, if you get selected, how are you gonna pull it off? And I think we kind of convinced ourselves Maybe we could all just take another look at what we submitted and remind ourselves of what we thought we were gonna be able to do. Because, I think when we put it on paper, everybody's backgrounds and interests and things we've done, it sounded pretty good. So we'll encourage ourselves to be ready to jump in. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna reread what we submitted and be prepared.
I agree. I mean, you have a job. I don't. Well, a semi-job. Jobs. Don has semi-jobs.
Well, they may not be
I-
paid
I-
positions, but everybody's
Yeah.
maxed out with our
Yeah,
Well,
but I'm not.
boards and so on.
I think we've got the core of a good group.
I think we do.
And we can reach out to other committees also, should it come in. So,
And that would certainly make a great social media post, and maybe we can use it to, there are a lot of people on the island. And maybe we would reach out to people who haven't been involved before.
And we have people waiting in the wings
New members,
to
but that was my new business question.
to join the committee. So I can't say names now, but
So are there interviews scheduled and
no,
for new committee members?
but we can do that.
Yeah, I mean, once we know that you have people who want to interview.
We have two candidates
Okay.
who are interested. And I guess the issue for me, and it's not just for me, but are we in any way able to resolve the in-person quorum issue? Because one of the persons that we're interested in is not here on the island during the winter months, so we'd only be able to Zoom in.
Right.
Well,
So-
yeah. I mean, right now we need 3 for a quorum, is that right?
Right now, we need
Yeah, you
3.
go up to 7, so the committees are usually 5 or 7 if you need, then you need 4.
Can we have 6?
If we go to 6,
You'd still need 4.
so then we need 4.
Uh-huh.
So
So we've got to make sure one of those 6 is here all the time.
is here all the time,
Yeah.
Right.
which I think we can do.
Mhm. So please go ahead and get those interviews scheduled.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just need to respond, in my experience, and Dawn may want to weigh in as well, in, working with these kinds of organizations like the ETIP program and the kinds of organizations, excuse me, that are involved, the kind of meetings that they're planning to have, and I haven't sat in on meetings with them other than the application type meetings. It's all well and good to have a large army of foot soldiers. Okay, but my expectation, and I could be wrong on this, my expectation is that they're going to be providing people and who are going to have expectations for, our ability to deliver the kind of information that they require on a regular basis, which is likely to include not just our contacts on the island, but we may need to engage with, LIPA, PSE, and G on a regular basis. So we're going to need to be able to engage with, interface with, their people, okay? And probably, other organizations, which will be to one extent or another, of a technical nature. Okay, and so I think, while I'm all in favor of inclusion and we certainly need more people engaged, and we've discussed this as well, and if I may add, younger people as well, not that I'm being ageist or even in a position to be ageist, but, we've discussed this before. But I think, we had talked about if you will, a subcommittee an informal subcommittee of this group, and not simply the whole committee now augmented by, however many foot soldiers who are willing to sign up, okay? So that's my only, feedback, or if you will, pushback on that issue. Because, as was brought out, some of us have other jobs, some of us have other responsibilities coming up. I've got some eye surgery coming up this fall, so,
Right, let me just jump in. My goal for quite a while now has been bringing people on this committee who have expertise in specific areas. So the idea of bringing in one or two other people is based on their expertise that works for us for the things that we're working on. We're not just looking for bodies to fill the committee. And I think you can divide the work. And for instance, Donna and I, when we were doing the light bulbs and also for the clean energy community, the whole process involved collecting data from PSE&G and going through the bill data from the town, all of that stuff. And, it's not unsurmountable. It's a matter of, people taking on small things, and it doesn't take up huge time. It doesn't take up a huge amount of time per week. I have no idea, what this process is going to be. But again, I imagine.
Nor do I, Tim. But I'm just trying to guess based on some previous work I've had with experts in the field consulting to the federal government. There's probably going to be some sort of kickoff meeting. And we're probably going to have to give a presentation, I would expect, reiterating basically what we've already submitted in the proposal, and perhaps identifying the people, making the connections, selecting the people that we want to work with. So, beyond that, I'm not sure, but I guess it can seem intimidating where we're standing right now, that we're possibly confronting this. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I think we can just take it as it comes. Agreed.
Yeah, because the clean energy community thing, we had items that we call tasks, what do we call those? We had 4 tasks that we had to fulfill.
Yeah.
And, you didn't have to do them all in 1 week. You worked on them week by week and you fulfilled them. And it took time, and that's the way it worked. I don't know how this is going to work, but, and we divided it up. One person did one thing and someone else did something else. And,
There'd be some contact for each of the experts that maybe are assigned to us, just guessing, depending on your field of expertise, so.
of course, they've worked with, islands and other community groups before, obviously.
I think the expertise of those different islands is varied. Where, when we had that seminar, and I think there were 2 women, one from Maine and one from the West Coast, who seemed, very articulate and on top of everything. But I'm sure you get islands that are in need, but they don't have the same resources that we have in this room right now. So, and expertise. So, I'm personally not, I'm with Don, I'm not really that
Not worried.
concerned about that right now.
I'm not worried either. I'm simply saying that we want to be prepared, and that's one of the things
But I
that we
think
discussed.
we are. I think the application itself, the work that we put in the application, we got together, got that application done, and it's a really good application, I think. And it really sort of showed all the expertise that certainly the 3 of you have. So
I have to.
I know you have to go.
I have to go.
Christina, do you have one last thing, or do you have to go too, I think?
No, and I do need to go because I have a call soon, but I just wanted to say, I think on this project, first of all, the NREL people that I've interfaced with have been very clear and helpful, and they're easy to understand. I think they're probably set up to work with people who are not necessarily
Exactly.
experts. The other thing is though that I think you'll need a point person to like be the person to be in charge of, making sure that meetings are going to happen, that everybody who needs to know is aware, all of that. So somebody to really take this on as a coordinator, sort of that head person, and then make sure that things happen as they have to. But I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
know how to work like that. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I just have one more thought for the Green Committee. The Climate Reality Project just did a retraining. Were you on that, Tim?
Climate reality project.
No, this is the former Vice President Al Gore's initiative that I've trained in 4 times now. But they have a pretty well-organized Long Island presence. And I think it would be, this is a year where climate is pretty much front and center with the smoke and the floods and everything else. So maybe we should try to have a climate change focused presence at the Green Expo, and I can work on that.
So you want to,
I'll look into it,
okay. And
whether there's
that's
somebody
what
who's,
this, did you say there's a Long Island chapter? of
there
this?
is a Long Island chapter, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's some people who are quite active, and I think some of them are out east. I don't think I can do that thing that day, but I won't rule that out either if I can get somebody else to do.
I mean, do you want me to talk to them?
Let me figure out what
Okay,
the
why
channel
don't you-
is,
why don't
and I'll
you-
put them in touch with you.
And then we'll take it from there.
Great,
Okay.
Could you term it again? Climate
Climate
reality?
Reality Project.
They do trainings for people on climate issues.
Yeah, how to communicate. Oh, and one of the coolest things I learned on one of the training videos was that the amount of waste in heat in particular in traditional electric generation is more than half.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 80% of the energy is wasted. And
At best, it's a 30+%.
and you don't
conversion
have that
efficiency.
issue with renewables.
Well, yeah, depending on
So the idea that we have to replace the full amount of production is a fallacy. You only have to produce what's actually ends up being
Yeah,
used.
and there's
There's so many
an-
cool things we can communicate, hopeful things, communicate to people.
And also, like, reduce the amount of energy needed by about half.
Right.
Just through energy efficiency, but that's really,
So anyway, I
There's
was,
an enormous amount lost in what's called line losses.
right, line losses.
Delivery, transmission, distribution, so you have those line losses. And another amazing statistic is less than 10% of the energy content of the fuel in gas and diesel-powered cars is used to move the body
right.
of the driver.
Yeah.
It's somewhere between 5 and 10%, depending on, how efficient the vehicle
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, there are a lot of
There's
things.
a lot more we could be doing for energy efficiency.
Anyway, on that hopeful note, go and be efficient, my friends. Reduce your footprint. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Don.
Make a motion to
Adjourn?
adjourn.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Favor.
Yep.